States is going to electrify. We are rapidly seeing now the introduction of new and innovative battery technologies. The same batteries that power laptops, the lithium-ion batteries, are now making their way into transportation. And the technology is rapidly evolving that will allow an affordable, very small battery pack to go into automobiles that will allow the car to travel for 300 miles or so without having to recharge. As a matter of fact, such a car already exists. It's a little bit pricey at about $100,000 a copy, but it's called the Tesla, and it's been constructed in California. It's very interesting. No one who had any history in the automotive industry had a role in this. It was all done by Silicon Valley technology types. These were people who came out of the computer industry and software development. And they decided that the time had come to prove all the skeptics wrong and build an all-electric car that was attractive, and this thing is as sporty as you can imagine, that would be highly efficient, and this goes from 0 to 60 in about 4 seconds. And that could travel 300 miles without a recharge, and it does all of those things. Now, each one of these at the present time is being handmade, and so that's why they're so expensive. They have yet to standardize their manufacturing process, but that's coming. And they're about ready to introduce a sedan, less sporty but highly utilitarian. And that car will have the same characteristics in terms of mileage without recharge. It'll probably be a whole lot cheaper. They're talking about 30 to 40,000 as this car is introduced in about 18 months to 2 years. That's a sign of what's to come. General Motors has announced that the future of that company, to the extent that they believe it has one, and that's some question today, it is going to be based on electrification. And they have announced the introduction of the Chevy Bolt next year, an all-electric car that also is supposed to do several hundred miles before a recharge is necessary. And so the electrification of transportation is coming. And I think within the next decade, we're going to see a large part, if not most, of the automotive fleet in the United States converted to all-electric vehicles. The hybrid is just a transitional step along the way to all-electric. Now think about what that does for the market for coal. When transportation is electrified, it's running on electricity. And coal today accounts for half of our electricity generation. That's a number that I don't think is going to change. And we're writing the law in a way to make sure it doesn't change. And so this will create, just the electrification of transportation alone, the largest single increase in demand for coal of any event since the Industrial Revolution. So this is why I think the market for coal is going to grow. We're going to write the law to accommodate that. And then the natural demand for electricity as we electrify transportation is going to assure it. When you add carbon capture and sequestration technologies to coal, and you're generating electricity using coal without carbon dioxide emissions because of this technology, even with that technology added, coal still is the least expensive fuel. Even when you incur the cost of that technology on a power plant, coal is still less expensive than going to the fuel alternatives. And so I'm absolutely confident, as I've shared these views with you this morning, that the future for coal is very bright. And over time, the next decade or so, the market for coal is going to grow. Nuclear power will also grow. We haven't had a new nuclear power plant licensed by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission since 1977. The events at 3 Mile Island put a real damper on nuclear power development for 40 years. But now, for the first time, we're seeing license applications filed at the NRC. As a matter of fact, Dominion Power has filed one of those applications. Constellation has filed one, and NRG, an independent power producer based in Texas, actually based in New Jersey, but with major facilities in Texas, has filed one, as have several other utilities. And the NRC is now beginning to crunch through those applications. I suspect licenses will be awarded in the not too distant future. And we're going to see more nuclear power licenses filed in part because the greenhouse gas control measure will tend to encourage electric utilities to build some of their new plants as nuclear plants. Another prediction I have is that we're going to see at some point in the not too distant future a new electricity transmission grid, fully capable of handling the demands of the 21st century, extend from the plains states, where we currently have enough wind energy to fuel the nation's entire electricity needs. And this grid will extend from the plain states into the coast, where the electricity demand is situated. That wind energy today is captive to the absence of a transportation mechanism. There simply is no way to get it to the place where the electricity demand is. That grid that bridges that gap over time, perhaps again the next decade, is going to be built. The federal stimulus bill, which was signed into law in February, contains a substantial allocation of funding to develop a smart electricity grid. And my next prediction to you is that our electricity grid over the course of the next decade is going to gain tremendous intelligence. And that smart electricity grid can do a number of impressive things. First of all, it can enable time of use pricing as what we call smart meters, digital meters with digital screens where you can receive information on your meter are placed in homes all throughout the United States. These homes would enable people to know at any given moment in time exactly what the price of electricity to them is. And electric utilities, in order to activate that, would file tariffs with their regulatory authorities, whereby they would offer variable pricing on electricity depending on the time of day when it's used. Now that's important for electric utilities. If they are able to do that and encourage people to use electricity during off-peak hours, at times when electricity demand is low, they are able to maximize their existing generating capacity by flattening their peaks and avoiding perhaps the necessity of having to build some new and very expensive generating facilities. So it's a way to maximize the capacity of existing power plants throughout their electricity system. It obviously saves the homeowner money, because if you're able to switch your dishwasher or your washing machine or your vacuum cleaner to a time during the day when electricity is less expensive, when you're using that electricity during non-peak times, that can substantially save dollars. And the savings are by orders of magnitude. The difference in actual pricing at the wholesale level between peak times and non-peak times can be 3 or 4 times the base price. And so a tremendous savings can be accomplished by consumers in terms of electricity costs. That's coming. Car batteries will be able to store power that is generated during non-peak times. When we have these lithium-ion batteries in cars all across the country, millions of cars that are plugged into the basic electricity grid to recharge, that flow of current can go in both directions. And under a contract between the homeowner who owns that car and the electric utility, an agreement can be made to allow that car battery to serve as a place to store electricity that is generated during non-peak times. Now that's particularly beneficial for a utility that has renewable resources, because wind and solar resources are not found on a sustained basis throughout the day. And as you're generating electricity, assuming it's during a non-peak time, that car battery would give the electric utility a place to store it. Today they do that in what's known as pump storage projects. We've got one up in Bath County if you're interested in seeing it. It's quite a large thing. It costs billions of dollars to develop, and there are environmental objections about creating all of these lakes, one at the top, one at the bottom, that really don't have any recreational potential, but are just there essentially as a very large battery.